Today's guest, Amy Franks, single mother of seven. God, I can't talk now. Who range in age from 3 to 15, person in recovery, and just an all around lovely human, an incredibly strong woman whom I'm honored to have connected with, and we're going to meet her right after this. I spent a year and a half on the streets. Addiction took me there. Pain took me there. My name is Donna, person in recovery, domestic violence survivor, mother of 2. I spent years running from myself, but no more. I've come to find peace, and I am not here to light a candle. I am here to set fire to the darkness and give voice to the voiceless. I hope you'll join me and my guests as we face the stigma around addiction and tear down the walls of oppression. This is not a safe space. This is a brave space. This is Phoenix Fire. Okay, I'm going to try that again. Today's live production is brought to you in part by Prairie Sky Recovery Centre in Leipzig, Saskatchewan. Prairie Sky Recovery Centre offers private, intensive addictions treatment and supports medically assisted treatment strategies. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups through Mums Stop the Harm. To learn more about our sponsors, head to www.hardknockstalks.com. Are you happy now?
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay, and with that, let's bring in Amy. Amy, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I'm having a very blessed day and in a good space.
That's awesome to hear. Okay, so is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started?
I would like to say that I have learned through my journey that every time when you face your fears, you become new versions of yourself. So embrace them.
Beautiful.
That's what I.
Okay, let's roll.
Story doesn't work.
Okay, the story doesn't work today. We're having some tech problems. So we're just going to jump right in.
All right.
Usually we have a little animation that goes to break that up a little bit, but apparently it just doesn't want to cooperate today. So
it could be my fault. Technology doesn't like to work for me sometimes.
You know, I'm the same. I used to, when I worked
my
in
energy.
offices, I'd walk by a printer and it'd start spitting out paper randomly. And yeah. So anyways, that's another episode altogether. So can you oh boy. So focus. So can you tell us a little bit about growing up, Amy?
Yeah, I sure can. So like us all, we all have endured trauma in our life and we all have a story to tell. And when I was growing up, I lived with 2 parents and 1 sister. And I just like growing up, there were times where, and my parents never meant any harm. I know that they were doing the best that they could and kind of showed me coping mechanisms that they use for themselves. And then I learned them through them. And when I was younger, like in grade 7, my mom would be bottling wine and I would help her. And of course, I got to taste test. Not that like my mom was intending for me to get drunk, but well, yeah. It would happen, right? And it just kind of like was a norm in my family that, everybody drank on the weekend. My mom would come home and have a drink, And so I just kind of like, I watched that growing up, right? And my dad, for instance, when I got a little older, teenager, I met a boy, and well, we were breaking up, and I was super sad. I was heartbroken, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad was like, "Oh, come on, come with me. Come smoke this joint with me." And so I kind of learned that as a tool and a mechanism to kind of cope with my feelings was, well, smoking marijuana made me kind of numbed the pain, right? And it would kind of change my mood into sad to happy. So that kind of was the start of it. It was
Mm-hmm.
like the major start of learning from my parents and then taking it into my own life and my own adulthood. And I did endure some abuse, sexual abuse, not from my parents, but someone that was in my home. And I tried telling my parents, and they nothing really occurred, nothing happened. They didn't keep me safe. They thought they were doing what was best. Again, no shame or guilt on them. I feel like they were doing the best that they could with what they had. But that didn't help me.
Mm-hmm.
That ate at my soul. And there was a lot of it was an unhealthy environment in my home for myself. And I always was trying to escape that.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I found out when I was 16, I could leave home. So when I was 16, I thought I could be free and leave home. Well, that kind of didn't really help me
Mm-hmm.
at all, but I didn't have any help. No adults in my life were recognizing that maybe I needed help or there was more going on in my home. So I felt like I had to save my own self. So that was my only option at that time, was to just leave home. And I spent a couple weeks living on the streets and just sleeping on the park. Or I would sometimes, if it was raining, I'd sneak at home and sleep in the treehouse in my backyard. Um, and then I did end up getting to live with someone for a while. That was my friend. Mom let me live there for a while. And then I did try to come home and reconcile, but that didn't happen. I was always to blame, and my parents never really took responsibility for their part.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothered me a lot, and that only sank me further and further down a hole of wanting to numb these feelings I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't getting support from my parents. I was dealing with being sexually abused, and I had no idea how to cope with it because I was reaching out to even other adults in my life, but then they would always send back to my parents, and then they believed them over me. So I was just drowning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I turned to alcohol, and I drank all the time, like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful that I never did too many hard drugs, but of course, I did cocaine, and I was doing ecstasy, but never to the amount that people around me were doing. So I was thankful that I had somewhat of control. But I never wanted to feel. I just wanted to die, really, because I had no family support, and no adults around me were wanting to help me. I just felt like everybody was blaming me. And
Mm-hmm.
really, I was just saying, "Hi, can someone help me?
Mm-hmm.
Someone hear what I'm going through."
Mm-hmm.
And so it really took, like, um, when I was 18, I I had went home again, living at home for a while, and I went out with friends, and they wanted to go to the bar, and I was all like, no, I don't want to go to the bar because I want to wait till I'm 19, so it would be something special, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, they had convinced me to go. And divine timing, I'm a true believer in that. And that night I got stopped by a stop check, and I ended up uh I couldn't blow through it because I had asthma. They thought I was playing games. Well,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Long story short, I spent the night in cells, and so ashamed of myself, and like, how are my parents gonna feel?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Always worrying about how they were gonna feel. And then anyway, I ended up getting charged with a DUI. and that really bothered me because I knew I was made for something a lot more than I was giving myself. And I was like, man, I'm not even like, I'm just becoming an adult and now I have a criminal record.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how am I gonna like travel and do the things that I was dreaming of doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that was really like God's way of putting me back on a path because that night I actually wasn't drunk or drinking. I had like one drink in a 6 hour span, and but I was drinking and driving before that to the point where I would wake up in my sister's bed having no idea how I got there. And I also showed at my ex-boyfriend's house, and I don't remember at all driving at all. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing I remember was getting into his apartment and seeing shoes. And then I remember waking up being like, oh my God, how did I get here? And that still never woke me up. I didn't drink and drive a lot, but if I had to, I would do it. Like if I was
Mm-hmm.
somewhere drinking and I had to get home, well, I would drive home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Been there. Yep.
right?
I remember my best friend and
And
I, we would toss the keys in the air, and like whoever caught them was the one sober enough to drive.
yeah, right?
I would not recommend doing that to anybody. But yeah, that, so I understand completely what you're saying.
Yeah, right? So I thought that was, the easier way, but I quickly learned once I got charged with a DUI that really, taking that $20 cab ride
Mm-hmm.
was a way better choice. And so anybody watching, I would definitely recommend. I know it's probably more than $20 nowadays, but
Yeah.
it is way worth it. Like even if you got to leave your car where you don't want to leave it, it is
Yep.
way worth it to take the cab or the Uber or whatever we have these days
Mm-hmm.
home than driving yourself or even getting somebody else to drive that's
Absolutely.
intoxicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I ended up going through the court system and everything, and that's really what like shook me and said like, girl, what are you doing with your life? Like
Mm-hmm.
you are here to do so much more. So that day I made a promise to myself that I would no longer drink and drive.
Good for you.
And I never did. I haven't broken, oh my God, drank and drove ever again since that point. So
Awesome.
woohoo to that. I'm super proud of that.
Yes, that's something definitely to be proud of, because it sometimes when you're in that state, it's you're not thinking clearly, obviously, and it's kind of easier to just be like, oh, I'm okay, I'm good enough to drive. But for you to
Right.
make that promise to yourself and stand by it, that's kudos to you.
Yeah, it was hard, but yeah, it was like, it was God's intervention, I really feel, because
Mm-hmm.
I kept reflecting though, like if I drank again and I drove, well, there's even more severe consequences. And I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't willing to go even further down that hole. I was just like, okay, I'm not doing that. So I am thankful for that. Um, and then like shortly after that is when I met my children's father. So I met him when I was 19. I was working at KFC, and I was in my last year of high school at St. Luke. I was taking some distance learning through them,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Now
is where I met.
you had
Go
mentioned
ahead.
St. Luke during our previous conversation. What is St. Luke like? Is that like a private school?
Um, I don't know if it's a private school. It's for people who like high school doesn't really work out for them. People like to say it's for troubled kids or
Okay.
people with learning disabilities. I think it's just when like the regular school system doesn't work for them, and it definitely didn't. Like I couldn't concentrate at school when I was in high school. I had so much more going on at home
Mm-hmm.
and in my mind that I was trying to escape, and school just it was not for me. I
Mm-hmm.
tried, and I always had those dreams of like being valedictorian, and but I just
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh, we lost your audio.
Oh, she got a phone call. I bet you she got a phone
Did
call.
you get a phone call?
sorry. Yeah, my alarm was going off. Hopefully, maybe we should have set these all off before I started. Never thought of that. So sorry about that.
It's all.
This is the joys of live streaming.
Yeah.
Like with the beginning when I interrupted Donna and the This is a safe place. I'm sorry if I sounded like aggressive or anything like that, but live streaming this stuff happens all the
Okay. Okay. Well, good to know. I'm not the only one.
This
No.
is a good lesson in learning how to go with the flow.
I would agree. Life is, I've learned that going with the flow in life is so much more rewarding and more
Mhm.
enjoyable.
Mhm.
So anyway, what I was saying is that I went to St. Luke's, and that's where I met some people because I felt really alone in my life.
Mhm.
That I always used to joke around that I felt adopted.
Mhm.
But I made some good connections with two adults there, which one was the janitor, and his name's Ken, and I still see him today, and he is one of my biggest cheerleaders. And then
Mhm.
Marilyn. Um, she was kind of like my mother hen. Uh, she was a very big supporter and believed in me, and I needed that. So those two people I owe so much gratitude to for my journey because they made me realize that I I was worthy of doing better and loving myself and giving myself the opportunity to have a better life. So, and they never gave up on me either. Like when I went handed in assignments, they'd be like, "Hey, Amy," and they would say like, "Do you need help?" Or like, would just always help me through. And Ken, well, I got dropped off early. I either had to walk to school or my mom would drive me when before she went to work, and so I would spend the morning helping him get the school ready and getting they serve breakfast. So we would always chat, and he always we just had so many good chats, and he made me feel really good. So that was such a great school
Mhm.
for
Sounds
me. It
like it.
helped me, right? Yeah. It was at first, I felt ashamed that I had to go there, but in the end, it was a blessing. So
Mhm.
it's like sometimes when sometimes you just have to surrender and trust,
Mhm.
right? and
Mhm.
and that's definitely one thing I've had to learn on this journey is don't always try to control everything and
Mhm.
don't resist. It's just kind of, yeah, surrendering and just trusting that things are going to work out how they're supposed to.
Mhm. The
um
universe always delivers what we need. It just may not look the way we expect it to.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yes, I agree with that. That's beautiful. So yeah, shortly after that, I got a job at KFC. Or when I still was going to school there, I started at KFC, and that is where I met their father. And oddly enough, I was not attracted to him. I did not like him at all. I had a couple girlfriends that I worked with that, they're like, "Oh, look at Ted, he came, he's looking all good," and I'm like, no, but cool, like, awesome.
You
Glad you
go,
like
girl.
him and everything. Yeah, right. You go, right? And we already worked with each other for a few months, and I didn't really acknowledge him that he was, wasn't interested. Anyway,
Mhm.
everybody was planning an ecstasy party at his house. Um, and of course, I was the hookup because nobody else knew where to get some, and I knew where to get some. But I was already done with that. I was like, I'm not doing that. Well, I guess I wasn't. That was my one and last time. They convinced me that, okay, I'll do some. And so I did ecstasy that evening, and the whole night he would see me and say, "Oh, beautiful shirt. Oh, I love your shirt." And that was our only really conversation that we had. And the next day, I had to go home while everybody continued to get high because I worked the next day. So I chose to go home, and I I worked with him the next day. And when I first woke up, I had the thought in my head that he was the one, and I'm just like, give your head another shake. Like, what do you mean he's the one? This makes no sense to me. Well, I worked with him that day, and I felt like a little girl with like a crush, and you're like, oh my god, oh. And I just kept blushing every time I looked at him, and he kind of caught on to that, and he asked me like, what's going on, and then I asked him if I could give him a hug. And we went out for a smoke together, and the rest is history. And now we have 7 children together. Um, oddly enough, right? Um, and kind of that is what has started me off in this path.
Mhm.
Um, but I met him, and I was still drinking like not every day, but it was like a ritual every weekend, like
Hmm.
you had a drink. It was Friday. Okay, what are we drinking? What are we doing?
Yeah. Weekend warrior. Yep.
And right. But
Yep.
I was still smoking marijuana pretty heavily, like every day, all the time. Um, because again, there was just parts of me that I didn't want to feel. I wanted to suppress all those feelings that were like I would just keep pushing them in the back of my mind
Hmm.
because I felt like there was no way I could deal with them. And
Hmm.
I felt like no one was listening to me because there was a few times where I would try to like say this is happening and then I'd always get labeled as a liar or that it wasn't that bad or I'm remembering it wrong. And that only made it worse for me, to be honest.
Hmm.
Soon after I met him, he wanted to have a baby with me, which I see now as a red flag. But at the time, I felt honored, and I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, you want to have my baby, right?" And
Hmm.
and also, I felt like I would, if had a baby, then I would have that unconditional love, right?
Hmm.
And I just was yearning for that feeling of feeling loved unconditionally. Um, and so I was open to it. And we did get pregnant, and unfortunately, our first child ended up in it's called a miscarriage. I lost the baby, stopped growing at 8 weeks, but I found out on Christmas Day or Christmas
Hmm.
Eve, actually, I lost the baby, and I thought I was 4.5 months pregnant at the time. So we were kind of celebrating the halfway mark, but unfortunately, it ended up in a miscarriage on Christmas Eve. So that again, I couldn't deal with that at all. At all. Like they were like, "Hey, well, how do you want to abort the baby?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't make that choice. I don't want to abort it. I want it to be alive, right?"
Right. Yep.
And so I let them choose for me. Like I literally couldn't make the choice. And so I don't even know. I had to take these pills, so I don't know what they're
Hmm.
called or anything, but
Hmm.
they make you contract and abort
Yep.
the baby, right?
Yep.
Um, I had to be alone. I did not want to be with anybody. I lived a few blocks away from my parents at that time, and I was I just wanted to stay isolated. And I was also
Hmm.
saddened that my partner went to work and didn't stay with me because I wanted him to stay with me.
Hmm.
And I was also hurt by that. And when he was gone, um we had some alcohol there and I literally drank the whole thing.
Hmm.
I just drank it all because I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to deal with, having to lose my baby. So I remember just being so intoxicated, so drunk that I I couldn't move really. I couldn't do
Hmm.
anything.
Hmm.
And that kind of started my alcoholism again. I started getting drinking a lot more because I just couldn't face what had happened, and also if I went out of my house, I live here and I know quite a few people. I didn't know how to face people when they would be like, "Oh, how are you doing? How's your pregnancy?" And I
Right.
didn't know how to tell them that well I
Yeah.
lost the baby, right?
Hmm.
So that
That's a
made
difficult
me again.
conversation. Hmm.
It was very
Hmm.
difficult, right? And so then
Hmm.
again, learning from being a kid, how do you deal and cope with your emotions? Well, that was using a substance.
Hmm.
So then again, that's what I was doing. I was chronically smoking weed from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed and drinking
Hmm.
a lot. And I did realize once I started to really not feel good, I think I was like literally burning my stomach, that I needed to stop. And I just literally came out honestly and told my partner that I was drinking so much.
Hmm.
And I just, I chose better. And also, I wanted to have another baby.
Hmm.
Um, and not knowingly, I actually got pregnant like right after. So I did stop drinking because I got pregnant. So I did stop drinking.
Hmm.
Um, and so we had our first baby. And when that baby, Ethan, was about a year old. I was at my parents' house having family supper, and across from me was the man that had sexually abused me for many years growing up. And I remember getting up and going to get my dad some coffee, and he was eyeing me from head to toe, and I just felt disgusted,
Mm-hmm.
disgusted. And I sat back down at the table, and I look. My son was beside me. Sorry, it's gonna make me emotional.
Okay.
My son was sitting beside me, and at that moment, I guess I kind of forgot a part of this, so I'll just back up a little bit. So before I got pregnant, I was 21. I went out for my parents took me out for supper with their father. And I tried telling them again because they were going to invite him over for supper or to come over after and kind of celebrate with us. And I was like, no. And I told them, well, because he has abused me. I don't want him around. And I wanted them to believe me, but they didn't. Still, they just labeled me as a liar.
Sorry.
And it really frustrated me because I was like, who continues to tell that story and lie about it? And children don't lie about things like that,
Mm-hmm.
in my belief.
Mm-hmm.
So I backtracked to the having the family supper. I, at that moment, looked at my son and I was like, I'm never going to be here ever again. These people are either going to believe me or I'm never going to be in their life. Because I tried telling them when I was younger, I tried telling them when I was older, but they still weren't believing me. And mm, it bothered me too because my sister had allowed her daughter to go with him to the store, and that bothered me so much. And I just prayed that he wouldn't do anything to her. And I still hope to this day that nothing did occur. But I just knew that I couldn't be around there and I was not going to allow my children to go through what I went through. So that was the day that I made another promise to myself saying, okay, they're believing me or I'm just not having anything to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was quite a battle for them and me and my family. Um, Even during this, I got pregnant with my second son, and I got blamed a lot by taking my kids away from their grandparents.
Mm.
But really, I was just trying to protect them from the abuse. I wasn't trying to punish anybody. I was just really trying to protect them from what I had went through because I wanted to be the cycle breaker. I wanted it to end with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was and still is very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a battle of them not believing me because, I would go to his house and buy marijuana from him. And they would always say, well, if he abused you, why would you go get marijuana? Well, because
Okay.
it was easy. And I just, I actually thought it was just maybe normal. Like maybe that I was supposed to just accept it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were accepting it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but I would always bring my boyfriend in with me because I'd had one in there and he did actually he would touch me. And so I wouldn't go in by myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's kind of where things started to really shift for me when I chose myself
Mm-hmm.
and, um, not other people, not trying to play small or make myself small to make everybody else comfortable.
Right.
I was like, I am choosing myself today. I am going to go down this journey whether they believe me or not. And they didn't actually believe me until somebody else in my home growing up had said to them, it happened to me too. And so then they believed that it happened.
Okay.
And that hurt me to know that they wouldn't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, dealing with these emotions, what did I turn to?
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
To numb those feelings. Um, just escaping those feelings a lot with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I I wasn't like drinking every day, but I was drinking more than I would like to admit.
Okay.
Um,
So
right?
how long ago did you stop drinking now? How's it been?
Well, I wouldn't say I fully stopped drinking, but I definitely have control and I can enjoy I probably drink a couple times a year to be
Okay.
honest, but I
Hmm.
have control of it and I can enjoy a glass of wine or and let it be that.
Okay.
Um, I like to not label myself as an alcoholic,
Hmm.
which I kind of was, but I feel like when we label ourselves, our thoughts become reality,
Hmm.
and I really believe in that. So I wasn't putting a label on it. It was just I was having I wanted to gain a healthier relationship with these substances,
Hmm.
not having them overtake my life.
Hmm.
And being in control, not having them be in control of me, because that's how it was. They were in control of me, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like there
So
were
how
times
long,
where like I oh go ahead.
sorry, how long ago did you make that shift? 'Cause, just for context, like we were before the show, we were talking about the difference in parenting 5 years ago till now. So I'm gonna kind of hazard a guess that about 5 years ago was when you made that shift in mindset.
Um, yeah, you know what? It probably was even a little bit even before that.
Hmm.
So I moved into this house currently now, when I was pregnant with my 7-year-old daughter. And
Hmm.
that is when I knew what I was living in. I knew that the relationship I was in was not good. I knew that I wanted to do better for myself and my children. So that
Hmm.
is when I really started to dedicate loving myself and knowing who I was because I lived for so many years just as mom.
Right.
I was just
Yep.
mom. There was no more
Hmm.
Amy. And
Hmm.
so I realized when I moved into this house, because I realized what I was in was not healthy and was everything I actually never wanted to be living in. But I didn't really grow up with the best example. Didn't really, it felt normal for me, right? Because my parents also had a very unhealthy relationship as well.
Hmm.
So I didn't really have any better examples or even other adults in my life, right?
Hmm.
Lots of abuse is in my family and lots of substance abuse is in my family. So I just thought this was normal behavior. I thought, on every holiday, the
Hmm.
adults would drink and the kids would be shoved in the corner to play by themselves, right?
Hmm.
And everything really, really, really shifted when I became that parent. When I started to realize once I had another kid and then another kid, that I wasn't living, like, I couldn't imagine doing that to my kids and
Hmm.
giving that life to them. So that's when I really started to question everything I was living in. And that's how I also realized um, that I was always like giving these little like signs in my head, like, but I would just like think, put them off and not listen to them.
Hmm.
And then I started to listen to them. And that's when I found out who their father really was. And I was like, whoa, 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 I want out of this and I want to give my kids a different life. And I tried really hard. I moved into the house that I'm into now. Thankfully for my dad, he helped me get this house, my father. And um, that I still had the alcohol that I would drink, but it was a different relationship. I was I wasn't drinking every weekend. I could not drink for months, right?
Okay.
And but it was still not good. Like if I bought alcohol, I would have to drink the whole bottle. There was no control there. Like if it was in my home, I would drink it until it
Hmm.
was gone,
Hmm.
right? Um, so I just really at that time just started like evaluating the woman I want to be
Hmm.
and the mother I want to be and the role model I want to be because I believe that we need to be an example for our children. So if I don't want them to have those behaviors, then I better set a better example for them.
Hmm.
And so that is where I really started to let go and throw out things that were no longer serving me
Mhm.
in the journey that I was on.
Mhm.
So um yeah, I would say, yeah, when I moved into this house, so it would really probably be 7 years ago that I really like dedicated myself to not. So I wouldn't go pick up that bottle of alcohol. But if I went over to my girlfriend's house, I would have a drink, or if I had been at my parents' house, I would have a drink. But I really try to stay away from buying my own alcohol at home.
Okay.
Um, so that's things really started to shift
Okay. So there wasn't like
for
a
me.
moment in time, like with some people, there's like a day where you just like, I've had it, can't do this anymore, and then they've either go through NA or Smart Recovery or one of the modalities out there. But for you, it was kind of a more of a slower progression and like a
Hmm.
realization that this just isn't serving me,
That's right.
and
And
obviously
then
the
I knew
kids.
that I was called, yeah, and I was called. What really made me want to do it, and what really was for my kids, I wanted them to have a different life than I experienced. And I
Mhm.
know if I continued down that path, that I wasn't going to give them any different.
Hmm.
And I wanted that so badly. And they're my everything. They're my whole life. So
Mhm.
um, that is when I really just changed my mindset. Okay, how can I do this? So that's when I really started to fill my mind with more positive things, and I cared more about the people I was around, and
Mhm.
realizing that being around my parents really wasn't a good thing for me. That they really lowered my vibration, and they didn't help me. They didn't help me move forward. They really just brought me down. And so I had to really start distancing myself from my family. And that's when I started to really feel better. Is when I started to let go of the old habits, the people, and I started reading, some really inspirational books, and educating myself. But also, once I started hanging around with other people, I really got to see what I was giving myself,
Mhm.
that I wasn't giving myself the best opportunity to live a life full of joy and love and bliss and health.
Mhm.
Um, because again, I thought what I was living in was way better than what I lived in. But now I am so thankful and so grateful to say that even from that point, I am like way over here in my happy love and bliss life.
Mhm.
I thought I was doing good then, but I just want everybody to know how great life can be when you let go of things that are no longer serving you. And those things keep coming up, and they're never going to stop. So it's just really slowing down and listening to those things that it's um, friendships, relationships of all kind, with substances or eating or whatever it may be. When they're no longer, I feel like everything that comes into our path is for a reason.
Mhm.
um, but some of them are not always meant to stay, and that's okay.
Mhm.
It's letting them serve their purpose while they can, right? But
Mhm.
also having no shame or guilt when that time is done.
Mhm.
And I've had to really just embrace that. And the pandemic has also helped, I think, lots of people be able to slow down
Mhm.
and really maybe analyze their lives a little bit more of
Mhm.
what is working and what's not.
Mhm.
So in a way, like, the pandemic for us was a huge blessing.
Mhm.
My family has gotten a lot closer. My kids have gotten a lot closer. I've gotten a lot closer with them. Um, we had a lot of healing, because it has been 3 years now since I left their father.
Mhm.
And that is definitely something to be celebrated. And
Yes.
um,
Now, just to interject, so Amy, you had asked that we do discuss why you left the kid's father. Do you
okay,
still want to
yeah,
share that story, or do
yeah, sure.
okay?
So Um, when I so he used to always joke about, oh, the way to keep her is keep her barefoot and pregnant. Well, I started realizing that wasn't a joke, that he
Mm,
actually meant that.
mhm,
And being pregnant was part of the abuse. I did want a lot of children, and he knew that, and I think he took advantage of that. But that kept me under his spell. It kept him having control of myself, but also my body.
mhm,
Um, and it was again just like listening to that inner guidance I was getting, and I just kept having these dreams that he was cheating on me, and and I kept being like, no, man, he's not cheating on me. He
mhm,
would always tell me, he was a one-woman man, and I believed him. Well, I found out different, and then my whole world came crashing down because I was like, here I just thought I like found the love of my life, and life was going to be perfect. We were going to have this big family together and be in love for the rest of our lives.
mhm.
But that quickly changed that day, and I uh, I chose. I kept getting like signs from the universe, like seeing numbers, or or a blue jay, or I would just see these signs that I knew I was getting from the universe or God, however you refer to.
Mhm,
Um, and I remember laying on my couch, and I kept seeing these numbers. I mean, like right in my face.
mhm.
Like everywhere I'd look, I'd see these numbers in like on license plates, the time, the total of my groceries, or even likes on my Facebook page, like
Mhm.
just these numbers. And I'm like,
I have
okay,
this
just
weird affinity with numbers. Can I ask what numbers that you were saying? Like, was it a certain
um
number that you would see regularly, or?
to recall what numbers they are, I don't know. I know that I was seeing 444 a lot,
Oh, okay.
and that's being protected and guided by your angels.
Mhm.
Um, And yeah, it's funny. I should have maybe wrote that down. I never wrote
We'll
those
have to
numbers down.
have a conversation about
But
that off camera.
yeah, yeah. So I just remember like laying on my couch and being like, okay, what do you want me to know? What am I not getting here? Like,
Mhm,
what do you want me doing already? Because something is happening. Like, this isn't just coincidence that I'm seeing all these numbers, right?
mhm.
And it was the same number. So, like, what is this meaning? I was like, ah.
Right.
And the very first thought that came to my head was, you need to leave Theo.
Mhm,
And I'm like, okay, okay. And I already been wanting to do this, but how do I do this? How do I do this with 6 kids? I had 6 kids at the time. How am I going to leave? And who's going to want to be with someone with 6 kids? That's what
mhm,
I would always say.
mhm,
So I would stay. I'd be like,
mhm,
well, I better try to make this work even more, because I'm just gonna have to try to make it work with someone else. So I'm also, who's gonna love my kids like their
mhm,
dad, I would think, right?
mhm,
And that day I just like, okay, I'm gonna leave. And I actually, like, things weren't good. So I remember telling him that like things aren't gonna work out. And he kind of ignored me. And I was really serious that I like things aren't gonna work out. You need to move out, and that
mhm,
kind of thing. And he kind of just ignored it all. And I was serious, and I would tell him that like he needs to figure out what he's doing in a place and all the things. And this is not the first time we kind of had this cycle going on. I'll just kind of say that, because narcissists do have a cycle that they go in,
mhm,
which could probably be another whole episode
mhm.
about talking about narcissists.
Yeah.
But he had a cycle that I started picking up on, is
Mhm,
every time I would get pregnant, he would leave, and then he would come back, right? Kind of like when I was going to have the baby.
mhm,
And also because I was vulnerable at that time, right?
mhm,
And it was just this cycle. And he would post the same things on his Facebook, like each time, right? And then he would kind of like text the same things. And I just started really seeing the cycle and the pattern of them.
okay.
And I remember my one of my friends that I went out for coffee with, that and he would always sabotage my relationships somehow.
Mm, mhm,
Um, like he would either make something happen at home and then call me, be like, you need to come home. And then I'd come home and it'd really be nothing. And, or make me feel like, because I dealt with lots of anxiety and I was always overwhelmed. Like he kept me in this high strung
Hmm. Fight or flight.
anxiety. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
right.
Hmm.
And he also never helped with any addictions either. Like I didn't want to smoke marijuana, but then he'd be like, "Oh, come on outside with me," you know?
Okay. Hmm.
And I just started seeing this cycle and then starting like, okay, I am seeing what's happening here.
Hmm.
And he would also, I was taking my kids to school, but then he stopped letting me take my kids to school.
Hmm.
Um, and I was really just it's stuck at home. So I didn't really get to understand the depth of what I was in
Hmm.
until I got out and started educating myself. And I recommend a really beautiful book. It's Power, um, Thriving and Striving After Narcissist Abuse. It was a
Okay.
book that I definitely recommend to everybody to read, to be honest,
Hmm.
because we have these people in our lives all over the place, and it's
Hmm.
just nice to know how to deal with them or see the signs.
Hmm.
Um,
There's no shortage of
and
information on narcissists. It seems, on especially on I think it's Facebook or something. You're regularly seeing books pop up about how to deal with
mm,
narcissists and all that. So
yeah,
I think you're right. There is an abundance of them in society.
there
So
is. Yeah.
now talking about reading, and jumping forward to kind of today, uh, like what do you do to stay well? Like, what time do you start your day, and like how on earth do you juggle taking care of Amy and taking care of the kids? Because you also homeschool, which I just learned today. Seriously, just about fell out of my chair.
Yes.
I tried to homeschool one, and I'll tell you, I questioned my sobriety about 6 months in. It was a challenge. So I'm just in complete awe that you managed with seven.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I do appreciate your kind words. How I manage it, of course, it's been test and trial. Of course, so when I first left their father, um, I will just say this: I met a beautiful moon group. I actually had no idea why I was going or what it was, but when I first left their father, because I lived so isolated and never really got to experience life or know who really Amy was, I my promise was like I made this vision board for myself, very powerful tool. Um, and I seen it every day, and so it reminded me of all the things that I was going to then try or do or to encourage myself to move forward. And I
Mhm.
put it right where I can see it every single day, um, in my kitchen. And
I
my
bet you spend a lot
my
of time in
thing,
there.
I do with
Yeah.
7 kids. You're always cooking something, right?
Yeah.
um, so my thing was is I wanted to get new friendships and I wanted to try new things. And that I can tell you has been one of the best tools for me to move forward is like, okay, every week I'm going to try something new, whether it be food or a new book or join a new activity or a new podcast, whatever it was, or a new workout or whatever it was, right? Or
Hmm.
self-care tips like having a bath, right?
Hmm.
It was something, try something new every week. And so one of my friends had said, "Hey, you want to come to this circle? There's some really great women." And at first I was hesitant, because my anxiety, but I was like,
Hmm.
no, my little vision board reminded me, try new things. You want to make new friendships. So I was like, okay, what do I have to lose, right?
Hmm.
So I went, and that was the biggest. I needed that. God
Hmm.
sent that to me in the right time, and that really supported me going forward and really having that momentum and not going back to the abusive relationship and the toxic behaviors, and realizing that I didn't need to suppress my emotions. I just needed to feel them
Hmm.
and work through them. I didn't need to keep going back to my old ways. Um, and I just needed to lean on these people more. And they also taught me some great skills of, releasing, like writing, these things that you want to let go. It's called a burning ceremony. And it's been around for hundreds of years.
Mhm.
And it's just like writing down, letting go of abusive relationships and writing on a piece of paper and burning it.
Mhm.
And then getting rid of the ashes away from your home. That's very important. Um, and this just really liberated me to like move forward and like, okay, I got this life. I got this life. I could keep doing these positive things and move forward. I don't need to keep reverting back to drinking alcohol to numb these feelings because really they're not going away.
Right. Mhm.
Um, and that was when I started getting to talk about my childhood and the things that I endured and being heard and being seen.
Mhm.
And I think that's why a lot of us use is because we just want to be heard and seen.
Mhm.
And if nobody's there to offer that support, well, then we just want to numb them.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
so thankful, right? And so
Mhm.
thankful for that group. I went to it for a whole year. I met with them just once a month. But it was like going that once a month, like made me like crave it more, right?
Mm.
And like wanting to, like, I can't wait to get back there. And it would make me feel so good for just even a couple of weeks. That the energy that I got from the women and the inspiration and seeing how well these women are doing and also meeting other women that were on the same journey as me and supporting each other and just knowing that I wasn't alone
Mhm.
was very helpful for me.
Mhm.
And and then we had COVID hit, and at first I was like, okay, now I can't have this group. What am I gonna do?
Mhm.
How am I gonna survive? Right? And I didn't revert back to drinking like I was. I won't deny the first couple weeks I was a little stressed out, and yeah, I wasn't over drinking though, I must say, but I was having a glass of wine or whiskey every day, but I was only having a glass of it. But then I quickly was able to say like, "What are you doing, Amy? No, 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 no. This isn't what you're doing." So I was like, I know I'm better. What can I do now? What can I do now that I don't have this group to go to? That's when I really dove into Lori Ladd, um, um, Phil Good, um,
Mhm. Are
Mel
these
Robinson.
so
These
motivational
are
speakers?
all, yeah. So I really
Okay.
got into like motivational speakers
Mhm.
and just finding like self empowerment books.
Mhm.
And again, my
Right.
vision board.
And you get up early
Really,
and go for morning walks and do lives as well.
I do.
Yeah,
I
those are
do.
great.
And that's kind of been my new thing.
Mhm.
Because like parenting all these kids is hard, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't I needed to step away from that grr and um I don't want to say rage, but like I wanted to be more calm with my
Mm.
children, and that was something I was always trying to work on.
Mhm.
Being a little bit more gentle and more calm than like, and well, people always say that I'm so patient, but I don't feel like I am. But I am feeling it more now in my days.
Mhm.
But I didn't. People like you are so patient. I'm like, I am, you know. um, so it was like, okay, like what can I do? So I noticed when I would give myself my own time,
Mhm.
I could serve my little people way better than when I was just serving them and being their maids and running all day for them and never filling my cup.
Mhm.
So I started to learn that when I fill up my cup and my cup's full, I love my little people the way that they deserve. And I was the mother I wanted to be. So, um, of course it was a struggle, and I would get mad at like and because it was hard. I'm like, when am I doing when do I fit my own self in, because I
Mhm.
have all these little people and I had a newborn,
Mhm.
and it was a struggle. So the only thing that I had, and I have to thank my kids for being very supportive. They were helpful, very, very helpful. And I would have a bath. I would have a hot salt bath, and I would turn on one of those motivational speakers again, and that was my time.
Mhm.
And so I just want to encourage all moms out there, or single parents in general, that if there is a will, there is a way. If you are thinking like, I'm a single parent, there's never time for me, I am telling you that yes, there is.
Mhm.
Because I have 7 kids, I had a newborn, and I still made sure I made time for me.
Mhm.
And that was my hot salt bath. And my kids got good at just like letting me have my time. And, I'd usually put on a show for them and they would watch shows. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're getting my own time. And so that's what it was. And then that kind of quickly changed into starting my own women's group.
Mhm.
I thought, okay, well, I'm seeing that there's this disconnect in the community going through COVID, and people are wanting to gather, and they're so stressed out, and I wanted to help support other women and get them to feel this way that I started feeling. Started feeling alive and living with purpose. I wasn't just like waking up to be alive. I was really starting to live my life.
Mhm.
And I just kept being like, you know what? If my ancestors could raise kids without being able to go to dance and gymnastics and the library because everything was closed, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm not gonna let it have the best of me. I got this. I'm a warrior mom. I can do this. So
Mhm.
I just kind of like, we got simple with life.
Mhm.
And that was such a beautiful thing because my kids have grown up really spoiled with stuff. And always kind of like, my kids would always, when they were younger, we didn't have bananas one time. And my son was so confused. What do you mean we don't have bananas? He like literally thought they grew here, but they didn't. I just always made sure that they had it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we got to learn more simple, and they got to have more appreciation for things.
Mhm.
And so I really enjoyed that about COVID. And so I wanted to have this group of women to also support, and to show that they too can make these choices for themselves, and for their families.
Mhm.
And they can feel as good as I feel too. So I do. I host it every 2 weeks, and so if you're watching and you're in my area and you want to join, definitely reach out. I would love to have you. Um,
I'm glad that you said that because I
so
was just about to ask, how can other women contact you and connect who might be interested in?
yeah, you can definitely find me on Facebook or Instagram. Probably easier to find me on Facebook, but yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I would love to have. I actually just kind of, I don't want to say advertised it, but I was given a call out to other women just a couple weeks ago saying, if there's any goddesses out there that are wanting to join this supportive group, of women, because I really think that we need to bring like womanhood back, supporting
Mhm.
one another, right? Instead
Mhm.
of shaming one another,
Mhm.
right? Or how we parent. Everybody has their own way and style.
Right.
But
And just quickly,
what I
Amy,
like to
what's your Instagram handle?
is Amy Franks _8.
Okay. Amy Franks _8. Cool. Alrighty.
Yep. Yep. And then you can find me on Facebook just at Amy Franks
Okay.
is what I go by. Um, but what is new for me, well, not new, I started it in October, so like winter came, and it was an ugly winter. It was so cold, and
Mhm.
I needed something for myself, because again, couldn't really go anywhere, and I needed something for myself to feel in a good space so I could love these little people that I was with, right?
Mhm.
And I just was pushing myself forward to, again, referring back to my vision board of the woman I wanted to be, and the mother I wanted to be. And I wanted to not wake up and be like, oh, I need my time. Just give me some space. Like, I'm doing this right now, I wanted to be able to be awake and ready for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way I could do that was getting up before them. And I miss
Mm-hmm.
doing that because before I had the newborn, which was impossible to get up early because I was hardly getting any sleep, right?
Yeah.
So, and which actually bothered me at the time, but I'm like reminding myself to be patient with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It will happen. Don't worry, you know? So I like started getting up again. I get up now at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I go for a morning walk every morning. And it's not just like one of those ordinary walks where, you're on your phone or, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I really take time to set my intentions for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I also I do mirror work in the morning. So this is my routine. I'll be in bed and I don't have to do this anymore, but sometimes I have to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 up. And
Mm-hmm.
I get up and I start my day. I look in the mirror is what I first do. I look in the mirror and I look right into my soul. I look in my eyes and I tell myself all the great things about myself. I love myself and I'm powerful and I'm worthy and all these great, beautiful affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because um, we're so hard on ourselves and we need to feel it in our core how
Mm-hmm.
beautiful of a being we are.
Especially first thing in
And
the morning,
having
you look in the mirror and your hair's all over the place. You go, oh, God, I can't leave
and you got the bad
it.
breath and all the things, yeah, right. And then I have my
I like
lemon
this idea
water.
of mirror work. That I think I got to start doing that.
Yeah, and you can also even give yourself a high five.
Mm-hmm.
Giving yourself a high five because um, it's the way your brain works too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you don't ever give someone a high five and be like, "Oh, you're shitty," right? You're usually
Yeah.
giving someone a high five to say like, "Oh, good job," or "I'm proud of you," right? So even just that action, it makes that connection in your brain. So high fiving works, and my children also do this. They give themselves a high five in the morning every day.
Aw,
So it's kind of a practice that I teach my children as well.
that's fantastic.
Um, Thank you. And so then I have my lemon water and I go for a walk. I used to take my dogs, but they don't let me concentrate on my intuition or they don't let me set my intentions. I'm always like, okay, stop peeing on that, stop peeing on that. So I don't bring my dogs anymore. And so I just go with myself and I set my intentions of the day. And I also I unwind those feelings of self-sabotage because lots of times we'll wake up in a funk
Mm-hmm.
and we are not nice to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take that time to unwork all those emotions and work through them and just feel them and not try to change them, but and also to like give myself grace and love and say like sometimes it's not even true, right? And so I give myself that and then I set my intentions for the day and I don't over try to overwhelm myself where I don't make a list of 10 things where
Mm-hmm.
I used to do and then I felt like I failed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're out there making long lists, I highly recommend you shorten that to 3 things. Because
Mm-hmm.
what happens, or 5 things, no more than 5 is what I always say to my clients, is is because the way it works is that when you can check those off, again, your brain recognizes that and it's not a negative thing because
Mm-hmm.
and we're not self-sabotaging ourselves because when we make this long list that we're then down putting it down ourselves feeling like oh we didn't do a good enough job and I didn't get all these things completed in a day.
Mm-hmm.
When we can stick to 3 things we get to feel uplifted and empowered and it's more realistic and then so
Mm-hmm.
we feel good and then we're ready to tackle the next day and be like oh okay man I killed yesterday and now I'm
And
going
you
to kill
still have some
today.
time for yourself or your kids or whatever. I know I
Yeah.
used to be, everyone used to call me the list queen. Oh my God. I used to make lists for
Mm-hmm.
everything. And like you said, like if I didn't get the 20 things, which were unrealistic to begin with, done, I felt like crap at the end of the day and
Yeah, right.
completely burnt out. So I would have to
And
agree
then what do you, yeah
150,000% with you. Stop doing the big lists. So you're not doing yourself
Yeah,
any
because
favors.
then you're wanting to use usually, right? You're like, I feel shitty. And
Mm-hmm.
again, growing up, that's what I learned. You suppress these emotions by doing this or that. And well, if
Mm-hmm.
you're feeling shitty about yourself, you just want to continue that repetition, and that's where I'm like, okay, how do I end that? And that's to make myself feel good.
Mhm.
And also why I really say in the morning is because you start your day off with the right intentions, right? You get to
Mhm.
talk to yourself like, okay, I'm going to do this today and I'm going to do that today. Like I'm going to go to the park today, or, I have one client today, but I'm not going to take on another client because I need, today, you know what, maybe I'm not feeling like I have capacity to take on too much,
Mhm.
because we all wake up each day feeling different. And I think that we need to just slow down and really honor our body
Mhm.
and how it's feeling that day.
Mhm.
And since I've been able to do that, I find that I am in a much better place. But also is that we spend the rest of our day serving everybody else.
Mhm.
So take some time for yourself every morning because you deserve it. You deserve to have giving yourself love, right? Every single
Mhm.
day. And for me, that doing that in the morning has made the hugest impact in my life, but also making better choices for my body, not
Mhm.
not trying to suppress those things, right?
Mhm.
So that has been my biggest thing. And also meditation. Um and my kids also like to meditate as well. And
That must be the cutest thing to
um
see.
it,
You
it,
should
it
take, you should
is.
get a picture of that. I bet you it's just adorable.
Yeah, us all, yeah, laying. We all just usually just lay down. And now we actually really love doing it outside. And we just lay there.
Nice.
And sometimes we'll put on music, or sometimes I'll put on like an actual guided meditation, or
Mhm.
sometimes we lay there and I try to get them just to concentrate on a ball, like close your eyes and see a unicorn and just concentrate on that and let all the other thoughts flow away, right? Block them out, because our heads are usually what take over everything.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
mhm, and make everything so more complicated than it needs to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry
Hmm.
for catastrophizing, but with that being said, my dear, we have already been chatting for an hour, if you can believe that, which is,
What?
I know, right?
Crazy.
Yeah. So, I accidentally pushed the trigger button a little bit too early on a comment from our friend Jenny Churchill. So I'm going to put it back up on the screen. And she says, Womanhood group, amazing. Connection is so important. The holy grail of recovery. Thank you. And thank you for your comment, Jenny.
Yes, thank you.
So, with that, I believe that's what the only, question, comment sort of thing we have coming in today. Is there anything that you would like to leave us with, my dear?
Um, I would like to say don't let your past or your life situations, how much money you make, the things you own define who you are, because they don't define who you are. They don't make you who you are. They're just stuff. And also to empower to parents to not stopping living their life and their dreams just because they have kids. They want to be inspired by the things they do that you do. So show them how it's done. Show them how it is to have gathering with friends, and how it can be a healthy environment, and go out for breakfast, go camping. Don't let it stop you, because your kids want to see you also live your life. And that's also what I've learned, is that kids like seeing you happy. Don't feel
Mhm.
guilty like, oh, I can't go out because my kids this and this. No, your kids actually probably want you to go get your nails done, or go for a gathering, right?
Mhm.
I think that parents hold a lot of guilt, like they miss out on something, or whatever it is. But that's what I just have to say is, yeah, just get out there and live your life and be that inspiration for your kids, because they are learning from you, and that's relationships with everything.
Mhm. Very well said. You're such an inspiration, Amy, and I thank you so very much for taking time out of your crazy schedule to be with us today, and give those kids a big hug from us. Tell them they're amazing, and thanks so much for, just being wonderful little kids, and staying out of the way for the hour that we've been on here. But,
Yes, I'm
just
thinking the exact same thing right now.
I don't know if you've ever
That
noticed,
they
but our kids like to pop in and out. They're not here today, but they like to pop in and out of our live streams to say hello and stuff like that. But what a wonderful group of little people you've got there. I mean, you are doing an amazing job.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, we're gonna let you go for the rest of the day. Take care. Enjoy your Tuesday.
Okay. And much love to everybody. Thank you for watching.
There is power in numbers. If you'd like to contribute to ending the stigma around emotional pain, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow on Twitch, Facebook, and Instagram, like and comment your thoughts on our posts. Let us come together with our lived and living experience as a resource that has the power to engage new thought processes, to promote new ideas, to broaden the spectrum of care, and to show the world that we can recover. There is a safer way, and we're here to show you how. Take care, everybody.